What's up, everybody? Welcome into yet another edition of the Baseline Jumper podcast. My name is Jason Goldstein, and if you're listening to this, that means you have likely already heard our previous podcast on Tuesday night. We thought that it would be respectful to the tragedy that happened on Sunday for us to give it its own separate podcast and honor Kobe Bryant, Gianna Bryant, and all those lost in that tragic, terrible helicopter accident. So we wanted to get something up this week, return to a bit of a sense of normalcy. So if you're listening to this and other news stories have broken or other games have been played that we haven't got to, just know that we are recording this on Tuesday night, the 28th. It should be released either later Wednesday, early Thursday morning prior to the All-Star reserves being announced. So just wanted to throw that little caveat in there. We thank you for listening to our Kobe tribute episode. I thought Ben and I tried to kind of get our feelings out there and honor Kobe and the legacy that he left on the game of basketball and in the lives of many around the world. So now we'll try and get back into our regular routine, and I can ask this question. Ben, how the hell are you?
I'm doing all right. This Kobe thing has I think it's taken a lot out of everyone, and everyone's trying to sort of grieve and get through the process. And so it's been I think a rough week to be a basketball fan. There's this I think sense of joy that we normally feel about the league, and I think that this kind of gave that a little touch of kind of melancholy, because it's hard not to associate some of these things with the man who just passed away. So it's been kind of interesting. I mean, don't you feel like this has been like a weird week to process NBA stories?
Yeah, it has been. And, it's funny because we kind of mapped out the last couple of weeks. Obviously life happens. We had no idea what was going to happen over the weekend, but just sitting here, we were going to do Zion's debut and predict the All-Star reserves and, even give a Super Bowl prediction. So we wanted to give you guys an extra episode this week where we get to just be our normal selves. I might crack a dad joke or two if the mood strikes. And I'm just ready to get into it, man. So I think a good place to start is with Zion Williamson. After many weeks of talking and speculation and hype, Zion made his NBA debut last week. Struggled a bit early, then had that explosive run in the fourth quarter where he, nearly willed the Pelicans to a come-from-behind win over the San Antonio Spurs. And, I mean, he's playing in his fourth game tonight. Has looked good early, started to get comfortable. So I guess just real quick, your summation of Zion's first week in the NBA. I almost said NFL.
He's been incredible. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. Against the Spurs, plays 18 minutes. He scores more points than he plays minutes. Wills them, as you said, back into the game. Had a funky-looking three-point shot, but it went in 4 times, and he only shot it 4 times. So it's about as good as you can ask for. And I mean, he's been just rolling over people since then. And I mean, when you look at this team, I mean, obviously they were close against San Antonio. They're close against Denver. They put a little bit of a whooping on the Celtics, and now tonight. The Pelicans are playing. They're up on the Cavaliers with only a couple minutes left, so I feel like it's safe to say they're probably going to take this one. And that is really something. I mean, he's having quite a debut to his NBA career, and he's doing it on a minutes limit, and he's doing it on a team, Jason, who you predicted to make the playoffs and who genuinely have playoff aspirations. And you know what? You look at what's going on here, and Alvin Gentry has no choice but to play him because he's that good. And this is what everyone was hoping for. And he is proving that he is exactly what we thought he was going to be. And when you look at the team that's around him, all of a sudden, man, this is a heck of a team, a lot of talent, a lot of real NBA players here. And suddenly this is a dangerous team, and he's kind of the catalyst for all of it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, he looked a little rusty and a bit fatigued in his debut, which was to be expected. I think it was 14 weeks or so where, he practiced and worked out, but he wasn't in a competitive 5-on-5 for a while until he began practicing again. So it was a bit of an adjustment. We all knew that. I think we were kind of just watching and waiting to let him get his legs underneath him. And once he has, I mean, he's looked great. I know Sunday's results wouldn't have really mattered much given the state of things around the league, but he did get his first career double-double in a win over the Celtics. Now, the win didn't mean as much, but, he got that first double-double in what will eventually be a win over the Cavaliers. I mean, finished with 14 points and 9 rebounds in 30 minutes, only one foul. He's not turning the ball over. I was concerned about his playing weight, but he's doing everything to kind of dispel my concerns and just showing that he is a freakish athlete, even at almost 300 pounds.
I mean, if you want to put some of this in context, through his first 3 games, yes, this is a tiny sample size, but I just want to read you, Jason, his per 36 numbers for his first 3 games, which are just, they almost make you laugh. He's shooting almost 67%, which is consistent, obviously. He's shooting almost 67% from 3, and per 36 minutes, he's averaging almost 9 free throw attempts a game. Now, mind you, he's not doing a great job when he gets to the line and converting those, but he's averaging 13 rebounds, 3 assists, and 31 points per 36 minutes right now, Jason. I mean, it's laughable how well he's playing for a guy who, as you said, is kind of a little bit out of shape, a guy who's trying to play back in, and he's this good. I mean, it speaks to the fact that he is as good as advertised. And so all the hype, all of that talk about how good can he be, I mean, he's living up to all of it, and it's awesome to see. And it will be nice once, we kind of get back to a little bit of normalcy. It'll be nice to have this guy in Zion who feels, I don't know how to say it other than he feels like this kind of golden opportunity of a player. He seems so untainted, so kind of like naive, but also this sort of kind of untainted purity that we don't get to see as often nowadays in sports. And he feels like this guy who's going to be really exciting to watch, while also just being a whole lot of fun. So I'm really excited to see him kind of start his career in the league.
Absolutely. And before we get into our All-Star reserve predictions, a report came out earlier on Tuesday that Zion's interested in playing in the Rising Stars game. For having played in 4 games and for the league to select him, I think would be an incredible accomplishment. I think it would be based on name and hype. I mean, how do you not have the number 1 pick in there? Seriously. I mean, do you think he has a case to get into the game?
They would have to be insane not to let him play. Now, that said, if you're the Pelicans, you got to be like, hey, Zion, slow your roll. You have played 4 games so far. We have you on a minutes limit. Do not do anything crazy during this All-Star game, because if you're the Pelicans, the last thing you need is him to play in a Rising Stars challenge and hurt his leg or his knee or something, God forbid, and then lose him for more games this season. So, I think on the one hand, if you're Zion, obviously you want to play, but if you're the Pelicans, you kind of got to be thinking, all right, Zion, take it easy here. Let's not end up in a situation where you get hurt. Maybe join the 3-point contest. You're shooting almost 70%. Give that a shot.
Yeah, I think he can beat Joe Harris's crown from last year. But, I mean, it'll be interesting to see because they announced the rosters for the Rising Star Challenge Friday afternoon. So by the time we do our next show, post-Super Bowl, I think we'll have an idea of what the rosters are going to look like, and then we'll be able to break that down. Now, Ben, look, you and I are not egotistical human beings, okay? We don't usually pat ourselves on the – okay, I know, I'm speaking for myself. You're an egotistical maniac who sits there and looks at himself in the mirror while we do an audio podcast. I see it. Flo tells me things.
Sorry, I was looking in the mirror. What did you say?
I just want to give us credit because they announced the All-Star starters last week, and you and I absolutely nailed it. 10 for 10. If you look at the show notes here, we are all greened out, my friend. I even gave you credit for saying, even though Bradley Beal should, in your opinion, be named an All-Star starter, Trae Young will, and that got you in the 100th percentile, my friend. So we nailed those starters.
Yep. Pat yourself on the back. This next part, I want to be very clear that I am going to pick who I think should make it from here on.
Well, no, this is supposed to be fun. It's who we think will make it. It's not who we think the league will pick.
Right, exactly. These are the guys that I think should make it because ultimately I think this year is going to be very tough. The starters, honestly, with the way that Trae Young played the last few games, it you could really say even the biggest doubter would say, geez, you really have to think about him as a starter with how well he's played. So I think the starters were pretty straightforward. And to me, I kind of wanted to talk about I wanted to start with kind of our locks because I do think that there's a few guys here who I don't know. I don't see how you could leave them off the team.
Well, let's break it down by conference, even though I think it's going to be a draft format. I think for the sake of conversation,
Sure.
we'll go through our locks for the West, and we'll finish up with the East, similar to what we did with the starters. Is that fair?
Yeah. So, I mean, for the East, I'm going to go through a few of the guys who I thought were just absolute stone cold locks that absolutely had to get on there. Now, one of the guys is obviously Bradley Beal or Trae Young. I mean, what they've done, I don't know how you could keep him off.
Well, Young's a starter.
Right. So I mean, whether it's Young or Beal, both those guys to me are just locks. They're that good. Um, Ben Simmons to me, with the way he's played recently, he's got to be a lock. He's a great defensive player. Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. Those are the guys who I thought, I cannot imagine a universe where those guys don't make it. I mean, do you have any quibble with any of those guys? Is there anything you kind of wanted to, talk about as far as their candidacies and so on?
No, I completely agree. I think it also stays within the rules of selection because they usually try and go 2 backcourt players, 3 frontcourt players, and 2 wild cards. So I think you have your 2 backcourt players in Beal and Simmons, and your 2 frontcourt players, depending on how you view Butler, with Butler and his Miami Heat teammate Bam Adebayo, who I think is very deserving. So you and I are in agreement on 4 of the 7 spots, and I think this is where we differ a little bit. So I'm going to give my 5th spot because I think this is a huge name who had some starter potential, and that's someone who you don't have, and that's Jason Tatum. I think that, given how much he's improved and how good the Celtics are, after losing so many players and picking up the pieces with Kemba, who is an all-star starter, I think Jason Tatum's a no-brainer decision for the Eastern Conference coaches to be voted in. And since I gave up your secret that Tatum's not on your list, why don't you think Tatum deserves to be an all-star this year?
So I'm going to be honest and say this was probably the toughest one for me. This was the one that when I really dug into it, I had it between 3 guys for the last 2 spots. And so this is going to kind of segue nicely, I think. I had Jason Tatum, I had Kyle Lowry, and I had Chris Middleton. And I went based on a few things here. There were a few reasons I went with Lowry and Middleton over Jason Tatum. The first is just that, to me, Lowry has just been such a do-everything player for the Raptors that I had to reward him. They actually have a better record than the Celtics, and I don't even understand. And this sounds like I'm being facetious, but I really genuinely don't understand how they can have as good a record as they do. And it really starts and ends with Lowry, who has just held it together through everything that's happened this season so far. He is having just an incredible season that I think I just kind of almost glanced over because of the fact that the Raptors haven't been that exciting. They're just this grinding defensive team. And then all of a sudden I started looking over and I was like, wait, what? Kyle Lowry is averaging 20 points a game, 7 assists a game. He is an incredible defensive player. And just I watched a little bit of the Raptors and I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot how good Kyle Lowry was because he had become so deferential with Kawhi Leonard on the team, and it just occurred to me, oh man, this guy is, when he wants to be, he is such a good player, and I had to kind of reward him for the way that the Raptors have played. When you look at the rest of the team, I mean, they've lost so many guys this season, and they just haven't had a full squad. And so to me, he had to get in. And then the Middleton thing, I really wasn't even going to have him on originally, but I just looked and I said, Middleton is right there. And this is the one that I won't quibble over. If you have Middleton over Tatum, I think that's fine. If you have Tatum over Middleton, I think that's fine. Middleton has worse counting stats. He hasn't played as much, but he's been a little bit better by the advanced stats. He's on a better team that's